What is up, YouTube? Jake Parker here, and now that I put a solid and addictive 50 hours into the brand new hit game Palworld in the last 4 days, no, literally, I've even been logging in and playing this at work. This video is going to be an honest and unbiased review that highlights all of the different core components of the game and what the game provides even in its early access state. I wanted to wait until I got dozens of hours in so I can better feel the game's systems and not immediately jump to conclusions based on first impressions. Twitter, I'm looking at you on this one. If you enjoyed this video and look forward to more amazing gaming content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know when my next video will be live. To start, Palworld is best defined as a vastly open-world crafting and survival game with similar systems you find in any other popular games like Ark Survival Evolved, Minecraft, Rust, Valheim, I mean the list goes on endlessly. But the obvious highlight is the inclusion of the iconic monster-catching genre that was solidified in history by the Pokemon franchise. The game wastes no time in throwing you into the world and tasking you with capturing and taming the hundreds of Palmon that roam all over the different islands. And boy, does Palworld deliver on this. Within the first few minutes, you're already crafting a base and your Pal Spheres and venturing off to capture any Palmon that you can find. And Pocket Pair, the makers of Palworld, really made sure that this was a primary game system that they wanted players to experience first. Whether it's damaging a Palmon with different weapons such as pickaxes or guns to weaken it before throwing a Pal Sphere, or rapidly catching multiple monsters back to back, the action loop feels simply incredible and is a wonderful evolution to the monster catching system while still paying homage to the originality of the system's design and its origins. I will say it's been a little bit weird how I've been able to capture certain Palmon with lower level Pal Spheres than actually using a higher one like a Gigasphere or a Hypersphere. I'm sure that's probably just a balance issue or maybe just sheer luck, but either way, capturing Palmon is just a fun experience to have. Alright, so let's just address the obvious elephant in the room. Yes, it's extremely obvious that the monsters in Palworld are extremely close yet legally distinct comparisons to Pokemon, and there's clearly no denying it. But more so seeing designs as an inspiration rather than a direct ripoff, such as having the Pal deck to check for monsters you've caught or checking their habitats on the map. There are hundreds of different Palmon in the game, and each Palmon maintains its own uniqueness to its Pokemon counterpart, and only those who have played the Pokemon franchise before will even recognize comparisons in the first place. Otherwise, players new to the monster catching genre will see hundreds of new and exciting monsters that add life to their gameplay. And not only are there hundreds of Palmon defined with some having different variations of themselves, there are also alphas scattered around the world and are easily distinguishable by their much larger sizes, map icons, an on-screen health bar to provide a deeper challenge for you to conquer, and it just feels so comfortable and fulfilling about capturing alphas and adding them to your party. They even have lucky versions of Palmon with special abilities that randomly spawn in the world with large sizes and glowing orbs around them, which are obvious comparisons to shinies in Pokemon. And lastly, there are several alpha Palmon that are randomly placed in portals throughout the world for some reason, which felt no different than encountering other alphas, just with the added step of entering a portal to get to it. Each portal resulted in the same room design being used as a mini arena to fight and potentially capture the new alpha, but I was left wondering whether there was a purpose for it when I could capture the same Palmon just by finding it in the open world, unless I was doing it for completion, or maybe they have some specific special stats that you can't get by capturing the Palmon in the original world. Now let's talk about combat, and I really don't even need to explain how good it feels. Combat in Palworld can of course showcase what you can do by yourself, such as firing a crossbow, hitting an enemy with an axe, or shooting an enemy with a makeshift firearm. But the true standout combat is by attaching to your Palmon and unleashing devastating destruction. Each Palmon has different unique attacks or weaponry that completely wreak havoc against enemies and is by far the most insane and creative change to the game by far. Whether it's mounting a flying Palmon to shoot fireballs, hopping on the back of a giant Masanda who shoots an explosive grenade launcher, or even having a lift monk or tansy on top of your head firing an SMG or an assault rifle. Palworld literally gives no barriers to how you utilize each Palmon in combative, in unique ways alongside your own weapons, and that sense of freedom is a massive breath of fresh air. The only real concern with combat I was able to notice was that certain Palmon became stuck after certain attacks, but This is, of course, in early access, and by putting away and recalling my Palmon, that usually fixed my issue. Now, arguably, the most important aspect of the game introduced alongside the Palmon is the crafting and survival systems. Now, this is where I would normally steer away from games like this, as I'm someone who doesn't usually enjoy the crafting and survival genre, but the way that Palmon seamlessly blends the mechanics of base building and survival crafting by including your Palmon in every bit of the experience completely overhauls the repetitive build and survive feeling that other games normally provided me. Within hours of creating a base, you can have an entire assembly line of Palmon crafting alongside you or automating all of your crafting for you while simultaneously material gathering and allowing players to focus on other things like protecting the base from random raid encounters or exploring other unopened areas of the map. Each Palmon in the base has their own unique personalities and even the derpiest of animations to provide a fun, exciting anticipation for the next upgrade as you continue to level up your character and unlock even more options for customization. The open world of Palworld is extremely expansive and almost to a detriment, with different biomes across different locations, each with their own aesthetics such as grass, beach, volcanic, desert, ice. Palworld was clearly attempting to make a connection between the level design and the Palmon that inhabit particular areas, while also attempting to balance horizontal and vertical exploration. Not only this, but they also attempted to fill the world with as much as possible, such as the hundreds of green glowing Lith Monk effigy statues that allow you to enhance your capture power, lore pieces scattered throughout, literal skill trees that provide berries to learn new skills for your Palmon, and merchants that offer buying and selling of items or even Palmons themselves. Fast travel beacons litter almost every corner of the map, although there are some that are suspiciously placed in some places and leave you either only a few steps away from another fast travel or literally in the middle of nowhere. The ability to open new areas on the map as you travel makes you actually want to explore and see what's around every corner to discover. Now, this is also, though, where the most glaring concern comes in for Palworld, and that, of course, realistically is the level design. As I'm a current game design teacher, it's clearly apparent which areas of the game were given extended development time, while other areas, such as the mountain and the ice regions, they look to be potentially rushed in order to meet the early access deadline. If you're somewhat committed to knowing game design, this is really apparent by some of the low texture meshes, easy out of bounds that a player can get stuck in without even trying, stretched landscape areas that were created using Unreal Engine's landscape sculpting and paint tools within a short amount of time, prefab assets or foliage that can realistically be found in the Unreal Engine marketplace for free, and simply empty areas with nothing to explore or find for the longest amount of time. And again, this is likely because the game is in early access, although there were a ton of original assets that I did see as well, and this does have the potential to be corrected, of course, in future updates. Dungeons are minor cavern encounters that are scattered across each island and noticeable by their unmarked dark entryways as you walk towards them. With different level requirements and different alpha Palmon at the end of each run, dungeons are a huge way of potentially capturing new and powerful Palmon while also gaining massive experience for leveling your character. I will say I was a little bit bummed that every dungeon did look exactly the same with no difference in design beyond changing where the last room of the dungeon actually was, so the entire excitement of each dungeon became solely focused on whether the Palmon at the end of the dungeon was new or one that I've already obtained. The absolute true endgame of Palworld comes from the super exciting boss battles that take place in any of the large towers scattered across the different islands. These battles are the ultimate tests between Pal and Palmon by pitting you against extremely powerful bosses as part of a potentially unexplained storyline. Although the first tower is much easier to clear once you build a base and level yourself up, the other remaining bases are an absolute behemoth in difficulty that almost requires you to be max level in order to complete, which leads to a sharp dissonance between trying to continue the unlinked storyline while maintaining focus on exploring and surviving in the world to capture new Palmon, level up, and then try again later. Now, what really separates Palmon's monster catching focus from its Pokemon inspiration is the attention to multiplayer, something that Pokemon has largely ignored until recent games. With friends, building bases, capturing Palmon, defeating bosses, customizing your world settings before you even create your world, and exploring the world together It just brings a sense of wonder and connection that Palworld has done an incredible job of incorporating. With the extreme popularity of Palworld and reaching over 7 million downloads in just a matter of days, issues with connections are becoming much more common, with memory leaks on the servers that do force you to restart your game every few hours when it starts to lag. And there's even been some reports of progression being reverted and making the player have to redo activities that they've completed, and I had personally experienced that at least twice already. But the sheer fact that you can do almost everything in Palworld together with others with almost no restrictions, from catching to crafting to exploring and even creating custom community or dedicated servers with up to 32 players, Palworld just puts multiplayer front and center, and it's only going to get better as it continues to develop. Palworld, at the end of the day, brings in a bit of everything that has made other major games so successful, such as the monster catching system of Pokemon, world exploration and gliding systems from Zelda Breath of the Wild, build systems from Fortnite, crafting and survival systems from other games. Palworld simply takes it all and just makes it work in such a unique and unexplainable way. We're able to truly have a personal connection to our monsters in a way that no Pokemon game really has been able to capture, pun intended, and it's that essence of personal connection that players have been yearning for decades. We truly feel like we're sharing a world with our monster partners, and even now, we also have an early access roadmap that shows us that Palworld is not only here to stay, but it's only going to get better as the game gears up for a full launch later in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this review, I'd love it if you consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications to know when my next video will be live. Thank you for being the reason I get to do what I do, and of course, until the next video, everyone, game on.